Hey there, everyone, and welcome to the third week of the month. From the 16th to the 22nd will be the astrology we'll be exploring together. So the big news this week is we have Mercury stationing direct at 8 Capricorn. Now, this happens on the 17th in all time zones, although in some parts of Australia, in the southern states, that will probably happen technically the 18th, but it'll be very late on the the Tuesday night here. So Mercury will station at 8 degrees of Capricorn and bringing to a conclusion some of the events that kind of, really eventuated in that week between Christmas and New Year, where Mercury stationed retrograde at 24 degrees in very close proximity to Capricorn. Now, what's really interesting is that even though Mercury and Mars don't share an aspect across Gemini and Capricorn, Mercury is the ruler of Mars. And so now those, as I mentioned in the monthly overview video, the houses that rule Gemini and Capricorn in your own birth chart are now sort of back on track. So information might come through that you can now take action on. There's a little bit of clarity and focus in that part of the sky. So that's going to definitely bring some relief to just know that that sort of tricky period of Mars retrograde, its ruler being retrograde, it's all now unraveling, I guess, in such close proximity to each other, 5 days. So Mercury is going to continue through Capricorn until the end of this month. It's actually not going to hit Aquarius until mid-February. So it's got a little ways to go. So again, just like Mars, it's going to take a little while for these events and outcomes to really gain some traction. So the next aspect, of course, we'll see, what are we going to see next? We're going to see the Sun and Pluto make their annual conjunction. So this is a once a year event happening at 28 degrees of Capricorn. I'll have to double check my ephemeris and see if we'll get that next year. So January 2024. Yes, we're going to get another one next year. So there we go. So it's not like Venus where we will get the last one this time. So this is going to be like a refresh or a new synodic cycle for Pluto, because this is an aspect that features just once a year. So it's interesting that this is happening really at the tail end of Capricorn, and this is where Pluto will come back to. So 28 degrees is not over for Capricorn. We'll also see that this may bring, some, the Sun and Pluto, especially in a sign like Capricorn, it's power, it's structures, it's manipulation, it's control. And when it comes to your sovereignty, the Sun, how you want to be seen, how you want to shine, this might be a chance for you to reveal some parts of yourself that maybe you don't normally show. Maybe this is getting deep and truthful and honest. This could be just with the Sun principle in general, but most particularly in a part of your chart that is holds that sign of Capricorn. So this is, I guess, the Sun is meeting up with Pluto, and then it's going to slip into Aquarius on the 20th. And that's going to be the 20th in all of the time zones. So for the next 4 weeks, you're going to have the Sun light up Aquarius and another house of your horoscope, which is going to be, of course, a significant house of your birth chart this year. So as I've mentioned, that 0 and the 1 degree of Aquarius is very, very potent, not only this month, but of course, December 2020, the new moon that's coming up this weekend, and of course the entrance of Pluto. Those very early degrees of Aquarius are really potent. So the sun in Aquarius really does symbolize outsiders, those outside of the structure, but still dependent on the structure. It's like the idea of you still need structures and rules in order to rebel against them, right? So the time with the sun in Aquarius, it's not its ideal position because it's in detriment there, because the sun loves to be in Leo and Aquarius being the opposite sign. So the next 4 weeks, it is maybe about embracing your inner rebel, or maybe it is the inner, I don't want to follow the rules, or maybe having to find your individual place within a collective mindset or a hive mind, or it's hard to shine in a group, because it's more of can't be individual when there's that group think going on. So when the sun is in Aquarius, we've also got Venus and Saturn. There's that energy of that Aquarius house is really inviting you to, how can I shine in an area that might sometimes be a little bit difficult to shine, or a difficult place for the sun at least. So that's going to be the season for the next 4 weeks. And, being that fixed sign, it is the fixity of winter if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, and of course summer it here in the South. Then very quickly after that, we do have the new moon in Aquarius. So that comes along very quickly. I'm just going to bring up that time for us. So it's going to be about 6:30 a.m. in Australia. Where am I? Come back just a little bit more. There we go. That's about close enough there. Okay, so, this is the new moon in Aquarius, and very much at the beginning of the sign. Pluto doesn't get as far as 1 degree this year, but it's definitely close enough. And so this is a little bit of a swan song transit in some respects, the sun, the new moon, Venus, because Saturn's going to exit your Aquarius house for good come March. And so this is going to be an interesting dynamic, because the ruler of this new moon is Saturn and Venus is conjoined it. So again, it's going to bring flavors of relationships, of trinkets and trimmings. What are the rules? Do I have to follow the rules? Am I making other people follow the rules? It is going to have that sort of battleground of structures and, but trying to find agreement, trying to find some kind of harmony within that mix as well. We do have a sextile from Jupiter as well. So there may be that push forward, there may be that expansive quality, breaking outside existing rules, existing structures. Can you take action to reinvigorate them? Aquarius to me is extremely fixed. It's extremely rigid. It's very unyielding to changing ideas. I grew up with a mother with a very heavy Aquarius signature in her birth chart, and no shade on Aquarius, but it was very much this is how it should be, but I don't necessarily want to be a part of the process, but I want to dictate the outcome. And so there can be that idea with Aquarius, and it can be very rigid, and good luck in changing the mind of somebody who's got a decent amount of Aquarius placements. But with that sextile from Jupiter, there is a little bit of possibility there. If you can show either yourself or somebody else, if you're willing to compromise that Venus Saturn, here's the boon, or here's the benefit, or here's the opportunity. It's really hard to move forward when you're stuck or stagnant in an existing mindset, in an existing place, or an existing situation, which Aquarius can get stuck in a loop on. It's the idea of what the utopia is, but what are you going to do to create it? And now that Mars, it's a little bit wide at 8 Gemini, but it is direct and it's is forming a trine to the lunation. So again, it's that idea of taking that inspired action, not just mouthing off the idea or saying how things should be. So it's very innovative. It's very going outside the rules or outside the box. But there's almost that invite for gentleness there with Venus, and of course the Jupiter sextile. So high tides raise all boats. I know I've said that a few times, with January, but I think this particular lunation is really, this lunation cycle that's going to take us through until the Pisces new moon is really going to set the tone for what the Pluto transit from March to June will feel like. And yes, that's a 20-year thing, but I do think that this lunation cycle is definitely going to, if you're not aware already, it's definitely going to introduce you to what it's going to be all about for you. So, this that over the next 4 weeks, I mean, obviously we'll talk a lot about this with the Aquarius new moon, but it's where do you feel stuck? Where do you need to expand your mind on perspectives? Where do you maybe need to find a balance or a compromise between progress and remaining conservative in some areas? We all have our hills that we want to die on or not die on. And maybe this is, do you have to be so stuck and rigid in this one idea or on this one concept? So I feel like in some ways, particularly now that we're fully in the element of air, we've had this big air retrograde of Mars, Saturn in Aquarius, just a high vibe mentally, so much information we get every day. This lunation cycle is really going to help us to, work out where do you want to be progressive on some issues in the collective, in your own life. What are you willing to compromise on? What are you not? And if you can remain curious, if you can remain creative, if you can remain inventive, how can you use existing structures in your life? That might be the house you live in, it might be the boss you have, or the job you've got, or the relationship you're in. How can you try and reinvent that wheel a little bit? Or how can you look outside or beyond the seeming limitations and see something? How can you get from here to there? And the idea is what got you here isn't going to get you there. So there is change. This is the tension with Aquarius, because it's fixed, but it's air. And the invitation now is, where has your mindset or your idea become so fixed or rigid? How can you create or invigorate or innovate when you're stuck in a loop? Okay, so Aquarius is a very, very, it's an interesting energy because it's very dichotomous. Like, it's not one thing, it's not the other. You kind of get these kind of hippie Aquarians, peace, love, and brown rice, although brown rice is not really that cool anymore. Maybe it's, I don't know, tofu and soybeans or something, I don't know. Or you can get these really fixated, these are the rules type of Aquarius. This is what you should do. Like, the finger pointing is very, very Aquarius, which I find hilarious. So that's something to reflect on. Look at your Aquarius house, and where does that area of life need shifting, need changing? Where can you afford to change your mind? Where would it be beneficial to start learning to change your mind now, before Pluto really comes and changes it for you one way or another? Now, while all that's all happening, we've also got Uranus stationing direct. And so that will then bring us into a new phase of directness with the planets. That's obviously more of a background influence. Of course, if you've got planets or points at 14, you're definitely going to feel that more. And even though Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, a lot of people still see some overlay with Uranus as well. And I don't totally discount that. I just don't see it as a ruling planet for Aquarius. But this is again going to amplify the concept of change, whether you like it or whether you don't, where the way society is changing or the way structures are changing. And me, I'm 45, and I guess I'm in that real halfway age of my our life cycle. And so I see the younger generations, and I also see the older generations, and I also remember when I was young, and then the older generations were my age. So I'm in that sort of transitional decade of life, if you like, where I am sort of straddling tradition of the things that I know and what I'm familiar with, and the good old days, if you like, versus where things are heading. And for some of us, it's the fear of the unknown. It's maybe fear of technology, and how much that is shifting and changing our lives at a rapid rate. But also recognizing the wisdom of being around the block a few times, and not all change is good. Who benefits from change? Who loses from change? Who says what changes and what stays the same? So it's really fascinating times that we're in. And of course, we all get exposed to different things. And so there may be a particular corner of your life that these are the energies that are coming through. What do you need to change or move forward? And I think sometimes the fixity of Aquarius is also reminding that it's fixed Saturn, and it's also how much do you bend before you break, is something to keep in mind as well. But the willingness to change your mind, taking on new ideas. You don't have to take them on board, but I think it's very important to listen to them when we're talking so much Aquarius. So that takes us to the end of the week. It's a sun sign change, planet station, so a direction change, and a new moon. So again, more freshness and an onwards and upwards vibe coming through this week as well. Until next week, I hope you have a really happy new moon.